Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:07. Thanks for tuning into O'Connor and Company. It's debate day. We're going to give you some previews and analysis this morning. Lord knows we'll talk about it all day here on the station. And when it's time for the debate, you can hear it live right here on WMAL. No reason to go elsewhere. Certainly no reason to turn on CNN. Coming up in just 30 minutes, we'll speak with Betsy DeVos, who's been touring the country to support Title IX and keeping women's sports female. Then at 8:05, KT McFarland will join us. I'm Larry O'Connor and Bethany Mandel. It's good to see you this morning. Thanks for being here.
I love being here. Every time I get the pleasure of the invitation, I jump at it.
Well, we appreciate that. Joining us right now is a man right in the middle of yesterday's landmark Supreme Court decision, although it was actually a bit of a punt, I think. Let's get right to it, because I've got a lot of questions. Mark Chenoweth, president of New Civil Liberties Alliance, the organization that represented 4 individuals who had been censored by social media companies after those companies were coerced to do so by the federal government. At least that's what I think. In fact, let's start there, Mark. Thank you for joining us. Did the justices affirm that that is, in fact, what happened, or did they even get to that with this ruling?
It's good to be with you, Larry and Bethany. And no, the court didn't reach that. The dissent did, but the majority kicked the case on standing and said that, at least at the preliminary injunction stage of the case, that these plaintiffs did not have neither the individual plaintiffs that we represent nor the states have standing to assert these First Amendment violations against the government.
That doesn't make sense, because maybe you can help. I know you don't agree with the decision, but as a good lawyer, maybe you can at least explain how they got there. If your clients were in fact censored, silenced, shadow banned, accounts suspended, whatever you want to use, by these companies, is it because the government didn't say, okay, Martin Koldroff, censor him, Aaron Khariati, censor him? Is it instead the government said, listen, these ideas are out there, and whoever is promoting these ideas, you should enforce your censorship rules there? Is that the distinction, the needle they threaded here?
That appears to be the case. I mean, the court went out of its way to deny standing to the individual plaintiffs here and really raised the bar on what standing requires. I mean, these plaintiffs were added to the lawsuit, Larry, precisely to bolster standing. That was the entire reason for adding these plaintiffs, and they were chosen with standing in mind. So the idea that somehow other plaintiffs will have an easier time or what have you. Also, I thought it was interesting, at one point the majority decision said, well, some of your clients are complaining about getting shut down by Anthony Fauci and by the National Institutes of Health, but you're not suing them. Yes, we did. We did sue them, but they were kicked out by the Fifth Circuit, who decided to narrow the injunction a little bit. And so that piece didn't make it up to the Supreme Court. And for them to kick standing on that was particularly bothersome.
Yeah.
So this was something that Larry and I were talking about earlier in the show, and my question is: so they kick the can down the road. That's what I see this ruling as. Is there another can down the road? Is there another opportunity for this conversation and this topic, even if it's not yours, even if it's not this case, to come up again in front of the Supreme Court, or if they just decided to do the monkey thing where they put their hands over their ears, eyes, and just pretend like it's not happening?
Well, look, the government's going to keep censoring, particularly after this decision. I mean, this is a wide open invitation and roadmap to the government to how to censor. So there will be plenty of opportunities for people to challenge government censorship going forward, because there's going to be a lot more of it now. Will they be able to survive run this gauntlet of standing that the court has erected here? Remember, we had a 20,000-page record in this case at the preliminary injunction stage. Good luck to the next plaintiff to be able to amass a 20,000-page record at the preliminary injunction stage. That is unusual. So it's not going to be easy. And the sort of particularity that Larry was hinting at, that this particular government agent told this particular platform to censor this particular person, if that's the level of particularity that you have to show in order to have standing under the First Amendment to challenge government censorship, it's going to be very, very difficult for the average ordinary American to do that. Remember, the ordinary American doesn't even know when they're censored whether it was the platform who censored them or whether it was the result of some government coercion or government encouragement or what have you. They're never told. They're not part of the conversation.
It could have been the White House, the CDC, the FBI, or the Orwellian agency, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Mark Chenoweth is our guest from New Civil Liberties Alliance. Let me throw a hypothetical out there. Is there anything stopping the Biden or any of these agencies that I just named, the FBI, from calling Elon Musk and the X social media platform saying, hey, these actual, factual, real, unaltered videos of Joe Biden make him look bad. We've called them cheap fakes, and we think that you should actually keep those videos from being promulgated. Is there anything stopping the White House from doing that?
There's nothing to stop the White House from doing that under this decision. Now, I should carefully say that the majority didn't reach the First Amendment question. So it didn't say that what the government conduct did here was okay. Right. It explicitly didn't reach it. But the government can be pretty sure that it will take a good amount of time before their conduct would be stopped in the future. And remember, getting damages against the government is almost impossible because of sovereign immunity, qualified immunity, those sorts of doctrines. And so really this kind of injunctive relief that we were seeking is the only kind of relief you can typically get against the federal government. And the fact that that has now been cut off as well or made very difficult to get means that there is that much more incentive for the government to try to get away with censorship.
So I have two questions, and I think they're related. So my first question is there any path forward for this case itself? And also, with New Civil Liberties Alliance, do you have other cases that are sort of in a similar wheelhouse that could get to this stage? Like, where do we go from here?
Sure. So I do think there's a path for this case. We'll sit back down to the lower courts, and we'll try to get some more. Like I mentioned, the court said that the National Institutes of Health were the one that looked like they had been pressuring the platforms with regard to some of our clients, Martin Koldorf and Jay Bhattacharya. And so we'll go back and we'll try to make sure that those groups are back in the mix as part of the lawsuit. We've already issued a letter to Anthony Fauci after his testimony or after the David Morrell testimony. Because it certainly looks like there's some discoverable emails that were never turned over to us because they were being done on private channels rather than government emails and so forth. And so, the idea that they're getting away with all of that in this very lawsuit, and the fact that the court doesn't even mention that, it feels like they went out of their way not to find standing in this case.
Yeah. Which, again, I always try to end on an upside, Mark Chenoweth, and I guess that is the ray of hope here, is that since they didn't rule on the actual merits of the case, if you can thread this needle that seems to be a very tight one on standing, then we'll actually get a decision on the merits.
That's the hope. And we do have another lawsuit pending against the State Department with some very bad facts for the State Department. We have another lawsuit pending where we're representing victims of vaccine injury. And these are folks, in one case, diagnosed by NIH as being vaccine injured, a woman who volunteered for the vaccine trials, was injured, and then was shut down for trying to put together support groups online.
Was this the COVID vaccine? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, yep. That's correct. Yeah. And so, I think those are good facts as well. So we have other avenues to pursue here. But it's discouraging that the court seems so reticent to reach something that is, I think, a core violation of the First Amendment by the federal government agencies at issue in this case.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure James Madison had this exact thing in mind. Mark Chenoweth, president of the New Civil Liberties Alliance, where there's a whole lot of fight left in them. Thank God that you are fighting these fights for us. Thank you, sir. Great
Thank
you.
For you joining us. I'm glad to be with you. NCLAlegal.org if folks want to learn more.
Well done. NCLAlegal.org.
WMAL. Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Novec. Power you can count on.
On the next Vince Colonnese show, the big story that the media absolutely refuses to tell you about today, we've got it 3 o'clock here on WMAL.
Well, tonight is the debate, as we've said, and we've already previewed earlier in the week that the Trump campaign tomorrow, the first political appearance and campaign appearance post-debate, will occur in Virginia Beach, Virginia, Chesapeake, and Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, for the first time will be campaigning shoulder to shoulder with Donald Trump. Governor Youngkin has said that Virginia is in play. The Trump campaign has said Virginia is in play. Real Clear Politics has now moved Virginia into the toss-up category. But the Biden campaign has been sort of hemming and hawing, saying, oh, that's crazy. No, it's a blue state. It's not going Trump. No, they're just lying. That's just grandstanding. Well, read between the lines here, because it was announced yesterday that First Lady Jill Biden will, at the last minute, be making a campaign stop today in Virginia Beach. This is ahead of the debate tonight. Why she's not by her husband's side, helping him prepare for the debate tonight, I'm not sure. You can fill in the blanks however you'd like. But she will be, if you want to go hang out with Dr. Jill, you can head down to Virginia Beach and see if you can get a little FaceTime with her. It's a campaign organizing event to greet volunteers and supporters. So what do you make of this, Bethany? Do you think, is it true? Do you think Virginia really is in play?
If it wasn't in play, she wouldn't be there.
Yeah, it seems to be it. Yeah.
What's wild to me about the Biden administration, Biden campaign, is that they tell you it's raining when there is clearly a dog peeing on your leg, over and over and over. That is how they run this administration. That's how they run this campaign. Virginia is not in play. I just want to take a nice scenic trip to Virginia Beach. That's what Jill Biden is telling us. I feel like your presence there would be unnecessary if it wasn't in play, and yet you're there. It's wild to me, honestly, to see Virginia in play. We're going to talk later in the show about a lot of different polls that have come out. Mm-hmm. Things are not looking really rosy for the Biden campaign.
No. And by the way, to be fair, with this White House, the dog peeing on your leg is the best you can hope for, the way they have.
At least it's not biting you.
Exactly. Shedding blood. That's when they say it's raining. Oh, that's I'm bleeding. No,
it's
just
a nibble. It's just a nibble. And you're like, I can't get the dog.
Giving you some love. The Trump campaign has announced now they're going to open 11 field offices across the state of Virginia. Listen, we focus on this, number one, because it's an incredible development considering Virginia has not gone for a Republican since 2004. That would be 20 years ago.
Oh, my God, really?
But no, yeah,
oh,
George W. Bush against John Kerry. Since then, it's been blue, blue, blue. Number two, this is critically important because of the Senate race, Tim Kaine versus Hung Kao. This means more money, more attention, more focus, and it also helps those two open seats that we're looking at right now, Virginia 10 and Virginia 7. All of that is happening right in our backyard. So it's nice after quite a few years of just sort of being neglected on the national stage to have some hyper-focus going on here. So there you go. You got Dr. Jill today down in Virginia Beach, and then tomorrow you got a Trump rally. Oh, by the way, what will Biden be doing tomorrow after the debate? He's going to be hanging out with Elton John. He's going to Stonewall Inn in New York, in Greenwich Village, which is site of basically the rebirth of the birth of the gay rights movement, I should say. It was actually, it was a riot, because people were getting arrested because New York had laws against homosexual activity. And at a gay bar at the Stonewall Inn, there was a raid, and that turned into a riot, and that turned into the modern-day gay rights movement. Biden will be giving Elton John some sort of award or something, and he'll be visiting there for his, which again is kind of odd.
Does Joe Biden want to win? What do you like? That's a genuine question.
The day after the debate, he's going to New York, which should be a state that's already in his back pocket, and he'll be going to emphasize gay pride.
I mean, listen, I think that there is, for progressives and for Democrats, there is a place to do that. But in this moment where the spotlight is going to be so strong, he needs to be in Ohio talking to I don't know, some blue collar workers about their lives and about how he is going to better their that's how you win the White House.
Go back to Scranton.
Yeah, for real. But
there's one other element here as to why he's going to New York for this gay rights Stonewall thing. Then later that evening, he'll be going to the Hammerstein Ballroom for a big money fundraiser.
Yeah. This is how Democrats have stopped being the party of the people. This kind of stuff. This is exactly what's going to lose him the White House. The fact that he is spending this moment where he could be talking about his record and he's doing this instead. This is...
Oh, Bethany, he can't talk about his record.
I know.
He wants to talk about anything but his record.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:36 now on a busy debate day here on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for starting your morning with us. Coming up in 30 minutes at 8:05, KT McFarland, former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Trump, talk about a lot of hot spots around the world, as well as the latest revelations about the CIA's involvement in that Hunter Biden laptop hoax. That's all coming up. I'm Larry O'Connor. Bethany Mandel's with us today. And Bethany, you ran for Board of Education in Montgomery County to try to sort of change things and get, schools focused on educating our children. So I know you must be excited to talk to the former Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos.
I'm such a nerd. At the end of the day, when I saw this on our schedule of people to talk to, I was like, yes. Yeah. And I just need to figure out how to get Betsy to give me her phone number while we're on air.
Oh, this is shameless what you just did. Joining us now is Betsy DeVos, former Trump Education Secretary and a real fighter for things that we care about. It's great to speak with you again, Secretary DeVos.
Well, Larry and Bethany, it's great to be with you this morning.
Betsy DeVos was there when Julie and I kicked off the IWF bus tour to take back Title IX and protect women's sports in Scranton. And you have been a supporter of this cause from the beginning, and you even found yourself on Capitol Hill yesterday with Riley Gaines and Speaker Johnson. What was that like?
That's right. Well, it was awesome because Speaker Johnson really put a spotlight on this issue by hosting a panel discussion with Riley, with Chairwoman Fox and Heather Higgins and myself to really put focus on the importance of what Congress has the opportunity to do now, which is to follow through with a Congressional Review Act move to put a stop to Biden's revision again of Title IX and the implications, all the implications it has for women and women's sports.
So right now, there's not a ton, I think, that we can recognize that can be done on this front, unfortunately, because Republicans are not in power right now. But it feels like the winds are changing. And if those winds continue blowing in this direction, I would love to hear from you, Secretary DeVos. Like, what does 2025 look like? If you have a crystal ball and you can imagine yourself anywhere, where do you want to be if things go the way they seem to be going?
Well, Bethany, first of all, I have optimism that when that vote is actually taken in both chambers, there will be many Democrats that join to turn back this rule, because think about it. 52 years ago, Title IX was passed with a Democrat Congress and a Republican president. This was a bipartisan issue. And when you have to really examine the implications of what the Biden rule does and will continue to do, in that it will basically render women's sports meaningless, all of the progress that's been made on behalf of women and their ability to compete will be rolled back. We're seeing it happen across the country, and all of these young, brave women who have been out talking about their own personal experiences are putting a spotlight on an issue that cannot be denied. Is every Democrat member of Congress going to vote to enact the Title IX rule as Biden has proposed it, or are they going to stand with women? And I think this is an important issue each of them will have to grapple with. So I have some optimism about that. Now, whether Biden would actually sign it, that's obviously a very huge question. Mm-hmm. But again, are you going to stand with women and opportunities for women, or are you going to turn your back on them? You can't do both.
Betsy DeVos, you've worked with President Trump. You were in his cabinet, of course. I wonder if these are winning issues. These are winning issues. We know from Glenn Youngkin's victory in Virginia that parents having a say in their child's education and pushing back against these radical agendas, that wins elections. So if you could put a bug in his ear tonight when he was on the debate stage, what if he were to address these issues, or if the question were to come up, how would you like him to address it? What should he say?
Well, first of all, I think to acknowledge that in the K-12 years, government-run monopoly has failed millions of children in spite of the increasing amount spent on the education. It's because it's a monopoly. And in order to actually change that dynamic and get improvements, we have to have universal education freedom. In other words, the money intended for each child has to go on their backpack to follow them to the school or education setting of their and their parents' choosing. It's a really bottom line change that has to happen to fundamentally change the dynamic and create a marketplace of high quality, excellent options for families across the country.
Yeah, amen. So in your travels around the country, you've been talking to a lot of folks. What do you make of the makeup of the crowds and the folks who are talking to you? Are they all, deep red meat conservatives, or are you seeing people like my mom, honestly, people who consider themselves to be feminists, who if my mother were alive today and seeing what's happening to women's sports and seeing what's happening to women in general with this transgender issue, they would say, I'm sorry, what? Like the J.K. Rowlings of the world, basically. Are you seeing the J.K. Rowlings of the world at these rallies?
Well, yes, we are. And in fact, some of the participants up on stage talking about their experiences and how this has personally impacted them are certainly not from the center-right side of the aisle. It's really, it's increasingly... we're seeing increasing numbers of women happy and willing to speak up because they are either being directly impacted or they're seeing their children or grandchildren being impacted. And, what the Biden administration is trying to do to Title IX to really weaponize it and turn it on its head from its original intention. The original law was 37 words. That's it, 37 words. To ensure that women had equal opportunities, and to think about how it has been perverted and weaponized, starting with the Obama-Biden administration, when they sent out the Dear Colleague letter that basically forced all schools to open up private spaces, bathrooms, and locker rooms to gender identity issues, and then doubling down on it in this administration to really fundamentally change the entire intent of the law.
Betsy DeVos, former education secretary and now absolute champion for these important causes. We really appreciate all of your advocacy and activism and support. Thank you for doing that, and thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you so much, Larry. And Bethany, great to talk with you, too.
My pleasure.
Well, we're gearing up for the Olympics in Paris. Are you an Olympics nerd? Do you like the Olympics?
I'm not, but I actually was just in Paris twice in the last 3 weeks.
Oh, look at you.
I'm really excited to see it in person now.
Paving the way for the U.S. team. The Olympic swimming trials were held last week. It was really cool. They did it in a football stadium in Indianapolis, and it was quite a scene. I've never seen Olympic trials like this. And the team was finalized and announced. USA Swimming put the picture out there. And, boy, you've got to be just an ignorant bigot to look at that picture and only see the color of the athlete's skin. But that's exactly what Professor Janelle George of Georgetown University did. She tweeted out the picture that has predominantly white athletes. There are 2 African-American athletes on the swim team. And she said, when people say that Jim Crow was so long ago, it's important to remember the lasting effects of segregated spaces, like segregated swimming pools, and the continued impact across generations. This visual reflects that legacy. And the only saving grace of this story, because I get so depressed when I see a college professor saying something like that and just trying to resuscitate whatever racial divisions they can possibly stoke in this country as we're actually moving past that. The only saving grace is that the backlash that she got on the X social media platform was phenomenal. Just people mocking her and just, and it's so disrespectful, by the way, to the two black athletes who are on the team.
I was just about to say that. I can't imagine how those two individuals feel.
Right.
But what's really frustrating to me is there is perhaps I don't even know if it's necessary, but maybe there's a conversation to be had about why there are not more black swimmers on this team. But if you want to have that conversation, okay, then let's talk about making sure that everyone has the same opportunities. Okay, then you should be all in favor of school choice. Let me see all your tweets about school choice.
There you go.
Because, at Montgomery County Public Schools here in Maryland,
that's right.
they don't have the same opportunities the kids in private school or charter schools. Maybe they should be able to have the chance to swim on a team with a private school with more access at a swimming pool.
Yes.
But
Jim Crow is alive and well right now in our government-run schools, but she can't see that. She wants to beat up on these athletes. And, there were a lot of very funny responses. First of all, the natural response is to say, can we talk about the track and field team or maybe the basketball team?
Why aren't there enough white people on that? Maybe.
Well, and also, if this is just a byproduct from the Jim Crow era, then you would think that some African nations competing in the Olympics would dominate in swimming, but they don't. And for that matter, what about Canada? Canada did not have slavery or the Jim Crow laws. They have a very similar racial makeup to us, but they also don't have a lot of black athletes on their swim team. So maybe it's not America is racist 24/7 every day of the week forever to respond to every. But again, this is a college professor. You have to be so stupid to have an advanced degree and be a college professor.
Not just so stupid, but I can't imagine. I mean, there's always these studies about how conservatives are happier. This is exactly why, because you see a picture of young people who have achieved the dream of their dreams, something they've worked for their entire lives. And through her glasses, through her lens, what she sees is how can I look at this and see something negative? How can I see hate? How can I see racism? Whereas normal people who feel joy in their hearts on a day-to-day basis see this and they're like, God, that's so beautiful. Thank God. Like, their moms must be so proud.
Right.
That's what I think when I see that. But this woman who walks around looking for opportunities to be outraged and offended has conjured something in her brain, and honestly, God bless her, and God bless anyone who lives with her husband, her children, anyone. Can you imagine living with that?
Oh God, no. Oof. Listen, if you're looking at the results, if you're looking at the U.S. basketball team that we're sending to the Olympics, or the U.S. track and field team that we're sending to the Olympics, and the first thing you think of is, where the hell are the white people? And why aren't they there? Yeah, there's something wrong with you, and that's what Janelle George did. By the way, Associate Professor of Law and Director of the Racial Equity and Education Law and Policy Clinic.
It's literally her job to do this.
Yes. Here, I always try to find an upside and positive thing about these things. Not only do we love our athletes going to the Olympics and we're excited for the USA swimming team, but here's the real positive thing. If you're a parent and you're evaluating colleges right now for your kid, we just made your life a little easier. You can cross Georgetown officially off the list. There, one less college to apply to.
That was an expensive thing to cross off too.
Yes. It's 7:53.